nothing is more complicated in my business than how people respond to amounts of a rate increase or a bond proposal on a survey. And over the last 25 years of doing research like this, you end up learning things and seeing some trends. While we all sit here and do math and kind of know what a tax increase of 60 cents might cost or 50 cents might cost, or how a $50 million bond proposal might translate into a rate increase, that's kind of math that doesn't occur when somebody takes a survey, to say the least. And what we've learned over the years is that their perceptions and reactions to amounts is a lot more similar to price and item advertising in the newspaper than it is to just really understanding how all of this works. And what we have learned over the years is that when, and you're going to think this is going to be a little crazy maybe, but when numbers end in a 0, sometimes when they end in a 5, but certainly when they end in a 9, people tend to react differently to them, more negatively, than when they end in other numbers. Examples of that. A few years ago, we did a survey for Afton School District where they were interested in a rate increase. We did a split sample of 99 cents and a $1.32 tax increase. Outside of sampling area, the $1.32 was more, not less, but more popular. The irony for that district is that 99 cents would have failed on the ballot. In my view, they passed a $1.32 rate increase. Similarly, in Woodstock, Illinois, they were looking at a 99 versus a $105 million bond proposal, and again, outside of sampling error, a $104.5 million bond proposal is what it was, tested better. A community that we worked in a number of years ago thought that a 10-cent increase was what they needed, and they used the phrase, because they thought it was cute, 10 cents makes sense, and it backfired. Because people in the community thought they picked the amount based on the phrase, not based on what they needed. So part of what I want to tell you is that I think one reason why the 90 and the 76 is different is because the 90 sounds like kind of a convenient number compared to the 76, which sounds a little bit more like somebody did math. But anyhow, you can see on there that the amount does make a difference in terms of how people responded to it, and that is a pattern that we have seen over and over again when you do split samples. Obviously, in retrospect, it would have been nice to have done 87 and 76 to see what that difference would have been. We didn't. Hindsight is always perfect on this. My professional judgment is that the difference between 87 and 76 would have been less than between 90 and 76, just because of the nature of the numbers and how people respond to them. And again, I'm basing on that not just on conjecture, but years of doing not only survey work, but doing focus groups. For example, after the Afton situation, we did 4 focus groups to try to get a handle on why people would support a $1.32 and not 99 cents. That is so counterintuitive, obviously. And what we got from people was 99 cents sounds like price and item advertising. You made the number up. You asked for everything you could do, just less than $1. So anyhow, I wanted to mention that. That's a long-winded interpretation of why you see those kinds of results, but you can see that it makes a difference on the 80 set, on the 90 versus the 76. And by the way, that difference runs all the way through the survey. We asked people about some agree-disagree questions about public issues. In the first column, you see the strongly agree. In the second column, you see the total agree. That's strongly plus somewhat agree. And in this series of questions, along with some a little bit others, you again see evidence of what I talked about last time, where the framing of the question and what the question is about, in a sense, symbolically, has a lot to do with how people respond. And you see what people have as what you think of as contradictory opinions. And I hear that all the time, those results contradict each other, and they do, but we all hold contradictory opinions in our head about public opinion, about public attitudes. We all believe in majority rule and minority rights, for example. That's kind of the traditional example. Quality in my schools is the most important factor that affects my property value. 63% agree. People like me can't afford to pay higher property taxes, no matter how good the cause. 63% agreed with that. We're doing surveys in some communities where that number is hitting the 70s right now, by the way, depending upon the community and where it's going. But you'll see, in contrast to that, down at the bottom, I'm willing to support a tax increase to make sure we maintain the high quality of education in our school district. 53% agreed with that. Obviously, some people that said On question 5, they couldn't afford to pay higher taxes. 2 questions later, we're saying, yeah, I'll pay higher taxes, and that's kind of the inconsistency. And then kind of I skipped over investing money to improve our schools would benefit our community and our local economy, and nearly 70% agreed with that. You will find throughout the survey that if people vote no on this proposal, it's not because they don't like the schools and they don't like the proposal. A lot of it has to do with other kinds of circumstances. There may be 25–30% out there that's kind of no on schools. The rest are just have to do with more economic issues. And by the way, that number down in the lower right-hand corner, 53%, that's kind of the high water mark of what I think we can expect on a proposal if we go forward within the next several months. I wanted to put up a question about PACT awareness. If you remember when we did this question last summer, awareness on the very and somewhat aware combination was about 10% lower. So the work that's been done over the past couple of months has bumped up awareness of the PACT program by another 10%. For me, at least, this represents kind of a high watermark for a community engagement program, awareness in a community, and I think you heard the level of activity, at least from my perspective from St. Louis, was just amazing over the last couple of months. A tremendous amount of work, and it moved the numbers a little bit on awareness of the program. We asked people about moving the 6th grade to middle schools. The kind of interesting part about this response is that the most popular response was do whatever you want. I don't care. I don't have a preference. You've got just a little under a third saying stay in elementary. 4% fewer than that said put it in the middle schools. But with 37% saying I really don't have a preference. And in a lot of ways, that gives you kind of permission, in a sense, to do whatever you want with majority support. And again, the input from the engagement program, meaning the people that took time to go to meetings and fill out forms, at least from what I heard when Lori talked, kind of fell into the put it in the middle school side. So in a sense, I mean, I guess what I'm telling you is I don't think you're going to have a community backlash either way you go on that. We asked people about some facts about the proposal and whether it would make them more or less likely to support it. What is on the chart is the much more likely to support a proposal and then the much and somewhat more likely combined. What popped most was making the buildings, renovating them to accommodate 21st century learning technologies. Secondly, a successful bond proposal would create hundreds of local jobs for the community. If you remember when I was here last summer, one of the concerns I had about that survey was people didn't connect the dots between improving the schools and jobs and stimulating the economy. I think part of the message that we've gotten out over the last couple of months has begun to connect those dots in a very meaningful way, and those numbers are up in this survey. All schools in the district will be air conditioning, nearly 64%. Early childhood education right at 60. I won't read the rest of those. But the only one that didn't resonate for a majority, in essence, was when you asked people to do math. The $90 million bond proposal would cost the owner of a 100,000 home approximately $12 per month, and that was 45.9, some much or somewhat more likely to support the proposal. Lastly, before we get to the reconsideration questions, again are some agree-disagree questions. These are in the same format as the previous questions, with a strong agree and then the total agree in the second column. Investing money to improve our schools would benefit our community and local economy. 69% agreed with that. The next question is a brand new one. One of the things I kept hearing over the last couple of months is some notion about pride in community. And so we put a question in this tracking survey about that. Pride in better school facilities would build pride in our St. Joseph community. You can see how that resonated with people. Nearly 69% agreed with that. Given the condition of the economy, now it's just not the right time to consider a bond proposal for our schools. 66% agreed with that, similar to the 63% who said I can't afford higher property taxes no matter how good the cause. But then you're going to see on the next slide that some of that 66% ended up saying that they would support something. Again, the inconsistency that you often see, and that number is understandable, certainly given the condition of the economy. The other thing I want to see is, that number is consistent with what you see in a lot of communities who are actually passing proposals. So I don't see that as a deal breaker, I guess I'm saying. Down at the bottom, improving our schools is the most important step to start rebuilding the St. Joseph community. 61% agreed with that. Again, another new question, kind of getting at connecting the dots between schools and what it can do for the overall community. Question 21 was about the PACT program. 17 was with more than $230 million in facility needs. The proposal is a conservative first step for improving our schools, 56%. Investing in our schools will improve property values in our community, 55% agreed with that. Really interesting result in that I expected that to be higher. But I think what's resonating is jobs and economic development and pride, a lot more than maybe concern in property value. And then at the bottom, I think it's a very meaningful result. Our schools are fine just the way they are. We don't need to implement the PACT recommendations. 34% agreed with that, which is very low. And it gets to my point that I was saying earlier. It's not that people don't see the need, and it's not that they don't support the direction that we're going with our schools. Other things are what would lead to a no vote. At the end of the survey, we came back and again asked people about about a ballot proposal in April. The results on the 90 million were up a nudge, 2 or 3%. On the 76 million, it dropped, what is that, about 1%, but really identical to the previous results. Overall, it was right at 47%, up a little bit because the 90 million support increased a little bit. Again, my theory about that, or my notions about that, is the more people heard about the proposal, the less they began to see 90 as kind of a price and item advertising number, and so it began to get closer to the other result, in a sense. And then we asked, the last question is, while PACT identified a total of $230 million in facility needs, this bond proposal would address about 1/3 of those needs. Knowing this, if an election were held today, how would you vote? And again, on the 90 million and the 76 million on the split sample, results popped up a little bit again. If you remember, there were 44 and 51 here, up to 46 and 53.5 here. Again, at 53, in my sense, is kind of with the economy the way it is and with the results across the survey, kind of the high water mark, or kind of, you know, what you might expect, you know, assuming that an effort went really well to try to pass a proposal such as this. I'm going to turn it back over to Kevin in just a minute, but I don't know how many more times I'm going to be in front of the board, so I wanted to just add one personal note. Two things, actually. One is just how much we've enjoyed working on this program and working with an amazing group of committed volunteers. But the other thing I want to do, I'm kind of a storyteller, is a couple of days ago I had breakfast at Chris's Pancake House in St. Louis, if you've ever been there. And I ran into the mayor and city manager of the city of Maplewood. And I don't know if you know that community at all in St. Louis County, a nice community in the Central Corridor, and a former client of our school district. When the city of Maplewood, when the school district of Maplewood, Richmond Heights, first contacted us to go to work for them, they wanted us to do the communications and public relations for one of two options the board was considering for the school district. Option one was turning it into a K-8, shutting high school down, and letting kids contract out to a high school. Option two that they were really considering was shutting the district down. They were done. They had lost time and time again on the ballot, and they were done, and very depressed about the future. The district, similar to this community, went through a community engagement program. They put a proposal on the ballot that radically changed the nature of school facilities in that community, shutting down and selling buildings, building new buildings. The proposal passed, and the reason I'm raising this issue is the connecting the dots point I was making earlier. I don't know how many of you have been in St. Louis County recently and tried to go to a night spot in the business in downtown Maplewood. You literally can't find a parking spot. You literally can't get into restaurants. And home values over the last 7, 8, 9 years in Maplewood, in terms of increases, have led St. Louis County. And I'm saying that because, you know, we're all standing here and talking about jobs and economic development and pride in community, but at least in my perspective, one of the things that makes the work that we do worthwhile at some level, it's true. You see it happen time and time again that when it comes to community and the strength of community, schools come first. And it was really fun running into the mayor and the city manager of Maplewood, whose job has gotten infinitely better and more fun over the last 10 years as that community has redeveloped. So with that, again, I want to thank you for the work that we've done here, and I'll turn it back over to Kevin.